This is Aaron Shedlock. You're listening to the audio flow.
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 You're listening to the audio flow with Jacques. Listening to audiobooks never sounded so good.
Oh, that's actually from the girl we're doing the podcast with.
Hey, so it's hey everybody, welcome to the audio flow. I'm so excited about this episode that I am sitting in the office probably shaking. It's really weird because I do this every day for a living, right, everybody? But when you get an opportunity to chat with people that you have been pretty much stalking for the last year and a half, it brings a bit of a difference to what my job is. And not saying that that's taken away anything from everybody else that I listen to, but in case you guys didn't know, Lucy Rivers was my first audio girl crush, and so I stalked her pretty hard. I mean, I listened to almost everything that I saw her on, and so I got a chance to meet her this year, and even better than that, I have her on the show today. So Lucy, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hello. I'm doing so well. I'm so excited to talk with you.
I'm excited that you're here because this is really overwhelming for me, so I'm trying to bring it down a little bit here.
Don't bring it down. Bring it down. Turn it up. Turn it up.
Turn it up. Well, I am turning it all the way up because you are here, and everybody, I don't know how many of these interviews you've actually done. I don't know if I've seen too many, but you are such a talented person, and I want everybody who's listening to the show to make sure that they go over and that they're following you on Facebook and Twitter and grabbing all of your work and learning more about who Lucy is. And in case you didn't know, Lucy, did you know that the first book that I listened to you in was the Sugar Bowl series by Sawyer Bennett?
Sawyer Bennett, the Sugar Bowl series. Yeah, that's a fun one.
Yeah, that was a really good book. And then you also had a co-narrator on that episode, on that book series as well. And we know him as Mr. Fox. And so I'm excited that both of you guys are on the show. Is he there? Did he get his drink already?
He is on his way in. He's making himself a cup of coffee. He's very excited to be here. Yes.
So we've got the Mr. Fox, Christian Fox, with Lucy Rivers here today. And you know what? Before we get started into, all of your backstories and everything like that, congratulations on the release of Preservation, which is book 7 in the Washes series by Kate Canterbury. So congratulations to you both on that.
Oh, thank you. That is one of my very favorite series, and I don't know how Mr. Fox feels about it, but I love that series.
I agree. It's one of my favorites. Hi.
Hi, Christian. How are you?
Doing just fine. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. As my voice goes up a couple octaves, that's so embarrassing.
I'm gonna Mr. Fox right now, Jock. He's drinking coffee out of a certain coffee mug that you sent us.
Is that the orally screwed?
Like, you gotta be kidding me. This is amazing. I have to use this.
So that means that you need your own mug. There should be an orally screwed by Christian Fox mug. I'm just saying.
I'm fine with that. That's fine.
Oh, so everybody heard that. Christian Fox is now going to be a part of the orally screwed collection. Day made. At the conversation's over, everybody can go home. No, I'm just kidding. No, we don't want to psych them out like that. But I just was talking to Lucy about Preservation in the Washes series, and I finished it 2 days ago. Wait, is today the 22nd? So I got it on release day, started it the next day, and there's just something about that series and the way that you guys portray those characters. And Lucy, you said that was one of your favorite. I think it was, you actually recommended it to me, and I listened to it. So what is it about that particular series for you that kind of just speaks to you and gets you excited about working at being a part of the Washes?
I just think Kate, it's one of my favorite series because I think she writes real people, which is interesting, sort of having regular everyday jobs. People are teachers, people are architects, living in a complicated world with lots of colors. And on top of that, all of the men in all of her books are incredibly sexy men, very real men. She was making a joke on Twitter actually about preservation. She's like, well, at least it's a feminist man. I only write feminist men. And I was like, yes, you do. And thank you for that. I feel like all of the men she writes, they're men and they are sexy, but they also respect their women and are smart and complex. I think everyone in all of her books are complex. They all have flaws and they all have demons that are chasing them, but they continue on anyway. So I love the series.
I love the series too, and I love that both of you individual, like if they separated it and said that, okay, this is bad, but if Lucy was doing the entire book by herself, I'd still love it. And if Christian was doing the book by himself, I would still love it, because I love how you both can portray the same characters and give them the same tone. And sometimes we don't see that in a dual narration. Sometimes the tones don't match, and I don't know if you guys know that, but it happens. And and so how do you guys make sure that happens? It looks like to date you've done 29 books together. So how do you kind of make sure that when Lucy is, portraying a character, that Christian, when you get your end, that you're giving it that same mood and that same attitude?
I mean, we've worked, as you've stated, we've worked for years together now, quite closely. I feel like I intuitively know, what choices Lucy may or may not make, and vice versa, with her characters. But we always have a discussion where, we're discussing sort of where these characters lie. And sometimes we don't even necessarily need to hear one another voice a certain character. It's more just based on the information that we get from the author. I think a lot of the information for the characters is already there in the book and in the script. But we definitely have a conversation over coffee usually and be like, hey, what are you thinking about this?
So
go ahead, Lucy.
For things like accents, sometimes to just make sure you're on the same page, it's really helpful to sort of, whoever's recording their chunk first will sometimes pull out samples and we'll send them back and forth on Dropbox or whatever, just so you can really say, like, okay, great, this guy's Southern, but what flavor of Southern and how far you go with your Southern, so that we can try to keep them in the same world.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, and so we got a little bit of that Southern thing going on when you guys did Nick, who's one of my favorite characters in the Wash series, even though he's not a Wash, but he's there. And so we've got a little Lucy Southern, and then we've got a little Christian Southern going on. But you guys, like I said, you give it the same attitude and the same mood, and I get the same feeling when I hear both of you do Nick's accent. So that's me giving you an applause clap. You can't see it, but it's there. And we do want to do a shout out to those persons that are listening live. We have Cindy Marie, who told us what her favorite, I think her first book was, she said Laid Bare. I don't know if that was Lucy. Did you guys do that together, or was that you by yourself, Lucy?
That was a solo for me. That's a Lauren Dane series. I think actually my first series that I ever did was that series. So that one's got a special place in my heart.
Well, she put a little heart next to it, so obviously it was a little special place in her heart as well. And so, and then we want to say hi to Jessica Wakefield, who is greeting us from New Zealand. So if you can send a little shout out to her, and possible Misty.
Hi, Jess. I see her on Twitter all the time.
Hi, New Zealand's very far away.
It is a little bit far, but thank God for technology, because now you can pretty much speak to everybody anywhere except for Mars, which I'm sure they'll try to incorporate that at some point. And also Misty, who is a blogger and audiobook reviewer, and she is here, and she said she was just listening to Preservation right before we went live. So no spoilers.
Nice.
So let's get to the nitty gritty of it. Okay, so I always like to start my show with finding out where our talented narrators got their start. So Lucy, if you want to start and kind of walk us through your journey of how you got to here, and how you've received so many fans, me included, because I'm your number one fan. But, tell us how you got into this industry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a small town girl from Idaho, actually. I grew up in a tiny little town in Idaho, and I fell in love with Shakespeare when I was like 12, even though I didn't understand any of it, really. Mm-hmm. And decided that I was going to be an actor. And so I went to undergrad and studied acting. And then I was still in love with Shakespeare. So I went to graduate school to study classical acting in particular. And I, thought was going to spend the rest of my life doing Shakespeare on stage. And as it turns out in the real world, there's not enough Shakespeare on stage, especially for women's roles, to make that my full life play. So I moved to New York for about 7 years, and I was a stage actor there and a voice actor there for 7 years. And right about 5 years ago, I was moving to LA because I was doing more TV and film work, and at the same time had gotten my first book through Audible, which is located in New Jersey. And I did one book for them, and then another, and then sort of another, and they just kept happening. And it takes all of my actor skills and accent skills and all of that work that I did in grad school and combined it with one of my all-time greatest loves, which is reading, because I've always been a huge, huge reader. Mm-hmm. And it just has turned into such a blessing. I love it. I still do some film and TV work, and I do some writing as well, and I do some commercials and voice acting still. But I really do a lot of audiobooks now, and I could not be happier.
Yeah, you've got quite a journey there. And somebody else I spoke with today said something about Shakespeare, and they always played the male part. So did you find that you were more suited up with male?
My favorite roles were definitely when I got to be the girl who got to dress as a Absolutely. Rosalind in As You Like It was like one of my all-time favorite roles. It was so much fun. And it is one of the fun things about audiobooks is you get to play the girlfriend, but you also get to play the hero and the boyfriend. Bad
all
guy.
At the same time.
Yeah, you get to play everybody, which you don't get to do in many forms of acting. So it's really fun.
Well, I love that. And what about you, Christian? What's been your journey to the world of audiobooks?
Lucy and I have a lot in common. I came from a classical theater background as well, and had a very similar desire to be on stage and acting. And I was also in New York for a number of years, and that's how Audible and I found out about one another. My alma mater acting school hooked me up with an audition. It was actually like a year and a half after I was out of training, and I was very broke. And the show that I had getting out of school just ended. And I was like, okay, well, I don't have anything else lined up. What am I going to do? And, it was the service industry a little bit. And I was like, well, I'd love to keep using my skills when I'm not on stage. How do I continue that? And I just happened to get an audition with Audible. I walked in and met with them. And I walked out with my first novel the next week. And then that continued to another and another. And the next thing I knew, I was in a long-term contract. And I was living in LA. And just kind of got my start with a bunch of smaller publishers that just really, kind of took me under their wing vocally. And again, all those skills that we use as actors and artists translate to audiobooks. It's just doing it in front of a mic intimately.
Yeah.
And very intimately, as we all know. And I decided that's a pretty cool job. I get to live out in fantasies of a number of kinds, in front of a mic, and I can pay my bills doing that, and it just grew into a full-time career.
Well, I'm glad that you both had your journey to audiobooks, and I'm sure that there are listeners out there who are thanking the audiobook gods that you both kind of landed into it, and to be a fly on the wall in the booth. Well, not the fly, because they're noisy and it will probably cause some issues while you're recording. So maybe some bug that's less noisy, like the ant. I'd like to be the ant in the booth while you're recording, and talk about intimacy. Being the ant in the booth while Lucy's recording and while Christian is recording would just be, can I say, a dream come true that I want to be an ant? That sounds bad.
I mean, not necessarily. Depends on where that ant is hanging out. So,
as long as you don't step on me, because that would be really sad.
Yeah. I would.
And we do want to welcome some more guests. We have Patricia, who is from Puerto Rico, and she says hi, and she says, Christian, she loves you in the Submission series by C.D. Reese.
Oh yeah, that's a classic.
It definitely is a classic, and I would say probably maybe that was my first. That might have been the first book that I heard you and Christian with Jo Raylan, because she did the first book and then you came in and did the second, and I think it's like 8 or 9 of those. It's a pretty big series.
I remember it very well.
You remember it very well. So what was it like? What was it like recording some of those parts in that book? For those of you guys who haven't listened to it, I'm just gonna say you probably should, and that's all I can say about it. So.
Yeah, I mean, narrating can be very lonely from time to time. You spend a lot of hours in the same place doing the same thing, and it requires a lot of creative energy. But if you can kind of tap into the world of the book, that's what I always tried to do. And then you're just kind of surfing and telling the story to someone. Mm-hmm. But the Submission series in particular is quite racy, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. And it was some of the first time I encountered some of that material so blatantly, I guess, for lack of a better word. And I wouldn't say it was a challenge. It was just more trying to find the right tone to give the reader what they wanted to go on that journey, but also give myself a little bit of distance so I could perform the job.
Yeah, and so deviating a little bit from that, how do you guys go about receiving work where you're doing dual narrations? Do you kind of have, Lucy, do you have a list of guys that you can usually tell an author or publisher or what have you that, hey, I work with Christian Fox, and oh, by the way, Christian, did you know she cheats on you with Aiden Snow? Because she does.
Yeah, and it's fine.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll kind of hijack the question. I think that I in the community we all kind of know one another. I think we are familiar with each other's work, and when we have an opportunity to suggest someone that we like working with, that's great. I mean, it's one of the best joys to be able to be like, hey, I know someone that I work with intimately, and we know one another. Can you work with them? But a lot of the time, it's up to the publishers, right?
Yeah, I think it goes. If the book's coming through a publisher, I'm often paired up with someone, and it's their choice, or the author has requested a certain pairing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a couple of authors that I have worked with before, and now sometimes they'll reach out and say, I want you to do this book for me. I'm not sure what I'm looking for as the guy. Could you give me some suggestions after you take a look at it? And then I'll read it and say, well, here's 3 or 4 voices that I think would be a good fit. Go take a listen, and I'll connect you if you're interested. So it's definitely a combination of both things.
Yeah, but when you're starting out, that is not the case. I mean, most of the time you get the memo and you're like, yeah, I get to work with this person.
Yeah.
And now I guess as we're more both established, I think we have a little bit more freedom.
Yeah, and it probably like you said, it probably feels good when you have a little bit of freedom, and also the author may have a little bit of voice in that. I know that sometimes they're not able to kind of make a request, especially if it's, they're going through a publisher and the publisher has the rights and everything. But when they're able to come back and say, hey, I really want to use this person, and can do that, it's got to feel pretty darn special that people request that you guys work together, or separately that people want you. I mean, because we want you. I'm just going to say that. I mean, on audiobooks, we want you on audiobooks. Let me read that.
Clarification is helpful. That's good.
And so, okay.
It is a huge compliment when people request you. I think
and
that's a very big compliment to your own work, and it's nice to know that people are paying attention and clocking who they like. And it's there's a lot of narrators out there working, so to know that I'm being requested it's nice. It's a big compliment.
Yep.
Yeah, and so Cindy said that her first Lucy Christian book was Changing Course by Ali Martinez. Do you remember?
That one we started a long time ago, and the third book in that series is actually about to come out in about 2 weeks. So that one's called Broken Course, the third one, I think. We just finished for Ali.
So
Yeah, so the third book in that series is about to come out. We started that series a long time ago. That one is a beautiful and heartbreaking series. So by the time you get to the third book, you're ready for everyone to end up happy.
Oh, well, thank you for that, for giving me that disclaimer, because I was good until you said heartbreaking. I mean,
it's so beautiful, but there's some heartbreak. That first book is really, woo!
So yeah, I probably will stay away from that because I don't like to cry. If you're gonna break my heart in the book, well, you said you're gonna make it up to me in the third book, right? So I should be good.
Oh yeah. By the end, everyone ends up happy by the third book. And I love Ali Martinez. I don't know if you know her voice as an author, but she's very funny, and she writes these real people that are very complicated, and she's just a lovely author.
Changing Course, Stolen Course, and then Broken Course. That's correct. Yeah.
That's on the little video I put out of you guys earlier today. But I've met Ali. I've met her a couple of times at some book signings, and she's freaking hilarious. She gave me a book, and this was before I started really reading kind of erotic, and she said, "Here's a good bedtime book for you." And so it was, and then she wrote in the inside something about double penetration and put a heart and a smiley face, and so that's how I met Ali. Have you seen that book? You should probably narrate that one. It's short though.
No, I'll shoot her an email.
Yeah, let's make that happen. Okay, got some more favorites here. Possible Misty says her favorite Lucy Rivers and Christian Fox pairing was Beth Ammons even the score. I can't even read. Even the score. And she says the book and the performance was amazing for both of you guys. So, do you remember that book?
Yeah, it's like a sports agent who he's got 2 kids and falls in love with another sports agent. So it's sort of around the sporting world, but not. And that one's it's a sweeter romance. It's not quite as hardcore necessarily, but it's sweeter and it's fun, and there's some tension, there's some stalking going on by the bad guy, that kind of thing. So it's good. It's a nice standalone. It's a really nice standalone novel.
Okay. So how do you actually remember all of this stuff? Because, the Christian probably will just shake his head and say, yeah, I remember that. And Lucy knows all the details. So is it hard for you to kind of keep up with that information, especially if you're going back to do a series? For instance, the Walsh series is pretty big. It's 7 books. I don't know if anything is going to come after that, but how do you keep up with knowing or remembering what the character was like, what the character sound like, those type of things? Do you have a cheat sheet? That's really what I want to know.
Well, Lucy in particular has a memory like a trap. So I'm a little bit more impressionistic, and once I start reading the descriptions of a book or a series, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. And then it'll come to me in more of a performance, performance field. But you can literally say a title, and most of the time she's like, oh yeah, it was that one we did. And I was like, oh really? Okay, cool. But we both have magic hard drives full of all of the books that we've done. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to go into the vault and dig out something, because, there's, as romance authors like to do, there's sometimes your characters that show up that you voiced for maybe a paragraph in 300 pages, and they have their own book suddenly. Mm-hmm. And so, every once in a while, we try to keep pretty tacit records so that we can go back. The Walsh series in particular is, I think we both just have a really, intimate relationship with those characters. I don't think I've ever really struggled to be like, oh yeah, who's that? We just know the world really well, and it's so well written that I think, those characters stick in our heads and in our hearts. And so there's not really a stretch with that particular series.
Yeah. It seems like you guys are really attached to those. I mean, it's funny. Like I said, I just finished Preservation the other day, and in my head, I'm like, I just really want Christian to do Nick's voice because I fell in love with that story. And what did I do? I went right to the oral fixation group, and I tell everybody, look, you've got to just get to the part where you hear Nick's voice. I mean. I think that's the first thing I did, and I was like, Christian Fox does Southern, and that's what I said. Christian Fox does Southern, and I just left it like that. And everybody's like, "What book was it?" And like, it's the Wash series. You've got to go listen to it. And I love, like Lucy said earlier about Kate's characters, about the women. Even from the first book where it was Matt and I love it, Miss Honey, Lauren. It was Matt and Lauren, and how none of the characters were weak. The men are very powerful men, but the women stand alone. And so when you guys are looking for characters or accepting projects and things like that, what are some of the things that you like or find interesting about certain characters, and can you see yourself in any of those characters that you're portraying outside of the Wash series, some other ones that you've done?
I mean, I love strong women. I love complicated women because I think humans as a rule are complicated, and I love finding characters where it's not an easy automatic 1, 2, 3, we fall in love, we do this thing, and then it happens. I like complicated, strong people. I definitely have a very big soft spot in my heart for things that are a little bit on the dark side, the dark and twisty side. That's just my own personality, and so I enjoy that a lot. And I really enjoyed like doing a lot of paranormal books, I think, because of some of that darkness that happens, and the alternate realities let you into humanity in a different way, which I really enjoy. But I don't know if it's a well-written book. If it's well-written, I think kind of regardless of the genre, you'll find yourself in the characters. If those characters are fleshed out and if they're real, it doesn't matter if it's a billionaire and a young girl or if it's a vampire and a woman in post-apocalyptic Seattle. I think that as long as they're real people with all of those different nuances, then I'm game. I'm in. I'm such a reader. I'm so obsessed with plot and storyline that if the story's there and those characters are there, I'm all in all the way.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the Walsh series in particular. There's something I really love, as Lucy's saying about all of the the women being very strong and unique. I find that true of the men in particular as well, because I think there's nothing wrong with writing something that's fairly straightforward, racy, and we all love those stories. I mean, it's amazing. But what there's something that's really close to my heart about the Preservation series is all the men. There's a lot of different kinds of men in the world, and I think that there's something really interesting about the range of personalities. And, in this family, because they're all, also a family in this series. And like Sam and Riley in particular have a really interesting place in my heart because, yes, they're sexy. Yes, they're strong, but they're their own brand of sexy.
Yes.
Definitely not like Patrick or Matt. And there's similarities because, the family ties are there. But it's comforting to me to be like, there's a lot of different kinds of sexy and strong. And I think that, it's easy for us to have the archetype of this, build alpha male, which I voice a lot. And frankly, I enjoy, and I consider myself kind of that in my own life to a certain degree, minus the buffness. But I think, but you know what I mean? Like, I think that's what I like to see in the Preservation series is it's really refreshing when I get to see something as complex as that. And to see that, even in the romance genre, you can see a lot of different kinds of masculinity and femininity.
And you mentioned something there about I promise everybody we won't just talk about the Wash series, but that book just released, so that's why we're talking about it. But that was one of my things is that I told Lucy I wanted to do this show fairly close to the release of Preservation, because I have been waiting for Riley's story, and so this is why I'm kind of talking about it a little bit. But I love about the story is when they have these meetings at work, and they're just a big family, and everybody starts talking at the same time. And I love when you guys do that, because I could picture, even though I could just picture all of them talking at the same time, and nobody's really ever talking about the same thing. And in my head, I'm like, I wonder if that's how big families communicate. Like, how did you even, hear what the other person was saying? And you do a really good job with that. And the same as you, Christian, Sam and Riley have my heart. Sam, because he's diabetic. That's a spoiler for people who didn't know it, but you'll find out early on that he's diabetic and type 1, just like me. And so I found that I related to that character and some of the ailments that he was facing.
Yeah.
And then his story was just he and Teal. I just really loved their story. And then the next book, Preservation, because everybody just kind of thinks is Riley as this like kind of goofball.
It's kind of a mess.
I mean, like, he's clumsy. He's just Riley. And but I really wanted to say I thought he was I can't. That's a spoiler. But I don't want to spoil it, and people will be hating me when they listen to this episode. But I really like those characters as well. And I think my favorite female character, Lucy and I chat about this, was Shannon. I love Shannon.
She's such a little spark plug. I love her.
She's the best. So Lucy, do you think you're more of a Shannon than an Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, I come from a big family, which is also partly why maybe this book makes a lot of sense to me, because I'm the fourth of 5 kids. Uh-huh. So when the family gets together, it's a big, loud, shouting over each other mess. It's exactly that. And I definitely have a lot of Shannon in me. I think I'm definitely more of a Shannon than I am an Aaron. She just makes sense to me. The way she functions, the way she walks through the world, and her attitude totally makes sense to me. I love her.
But you're not bossy like Shannon is, are you, Lucy?
Only sometimes. Am I bossy like Shannon?
Yes, she is.
Hey.
Aw. Tell the truth, Lucy. We know the truth. We know.
Just in case you're wondering, Christian's fly is down right now.
Very funny.
You're having a little RISD moment.
Very rarely.
So we do have a question. Let me scroll back up here. And Lucy sort of answered this a little bit earlier, but Possible Misty, that's really not her name, but that's what she goes by on Facebook. Possible Misty wants to know if you guys like narrating romance or if you want to do other genres.
I love narrating romance. I also already do other genres. I do both, and I think that's a good thing, because I think it just gives you different insight and different flavors, and it lets you move back and forth between worlds so things don't become rote, I guess. It keeps shaking stuff up. Mm-hmm. But I love romance. I love it more than I ever thought I would. I think I got more into reading it because of audiobooks, and a well-written romance novel is amazing. It's got everything in it. The characters are great, and it's really satisfying. So I don't know. I enjoy both. I do a lot of YA as well, which I really, really enjoy doing. But yeah, I do. Mm-hmm. I do both happily. What about you?
Indeed. What was the question? Do we do both?
Do you enjoy doing romance rather be doing other things? Or would you?
They're uncomparable. I mean, as an audiobook narrator, I think you do multiple genres and multiple styles, and that it keeps you fresh from a talent execution perspective. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't a big romance person as far as reading them for myself, But I've definitely broke down more than a few times in the booth, just because something will hit me and I'm like, geez, that was unexpected. I thought this was just going to be an erotic kind of flop in the sheets, and this isn't really. That's like I find myself kind of touched in a way that you'd expect classical literature to do sometimes, and I think that it has the ability to reach you on a human level that a lot of classic or more traditional literature is unable to sometimes.
And that kind of reminds me of the Sugar Bowl series, which I mentioned earlier, that was the first series that I read that you guys did together, and there was some difficult content or storyline. It was a difficult storyline in there, and so I wonder if things like that affects you. How do you come back from that? Some of those things. So you mentioned that, there may be a moment and there's something deep that happens and it just kind of like, wow, I didn't expect that. And it can change your mood. Do you keep with that mood until you finish either that part of the book or the entire book? Or what do you do to make sure that you refocus yourself so you kind of don't take that with you, if that makes sense?
It does make sense. And I think actually actors deal with that for film, TV, stage, anywhere you are that you're playing a character, you can get really deep into it, and it can affect your entire life around you while you're working on it, quite literally. And some of that is good because it can make the work deeper, and some of that is bad for you on a human level and for your own sanity. I've had books where I've been sobbing in the booth and I literally have to stop and just get out for a while because you can't read while you're sobbing. And I don't think anyone actually wants to listen to you when you're that emotional. So it's not really fun for anyone. So I'll have to get out and sort of walk around and calm myself down and get back to a good place and go in and do the work. But I also don't want to totally let that place go, because part of that darker place that you go is the story you're telling. So it's just a weird, delicate balance of trying to figure that out. There are some books that I've finished and I have to wait a day or two before I can even start working on another one, because that book just got under my skin and I have to let it sit there and I have to live in it for a while before I can think about moving on. It just really depends. The Sugar Bowl series is an interesting example of that, because the book itself, you don't think, you're like, oh, Sugar Bowl, it's gonna be, and then like the opening scene is one of the hardest scenes I've ever had to read. Wow, we're just gonna open like that.
Well, call back to what we were talking about with the romance genre not always just being a sexy romp, in the headphones. Like there's something that sometimes it can really hit you, and that scene is actually one of the best examples, I think.
I wasn't expecting it either.
No, I definitely was not expecting it, and I had to sort of do that scene, and then I had to go away and come back, and because it also is a jump in time in that book, so that you're like, okay, and now I got to go to present, where I'm in a very different headspace than I was during that scene, and I definitely had to give myself some time in between on that front. And it's interesting. I definitely, as a woman and as a narrator, when I get a script that people are like, is this okay? You want to do this? I'll flip through it, and depending on some of the content, every once in a while I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can go there when it comes to consent issues, when there are rape, when they're like, how is it being used in the book? How is it enhancing characters of the plot or not? Because I think we're all sensitive to that in the world right now too, and as we should be. And so as a narrator, I also try to be conscious of that and make sure that I feel comfortable, and that I feel like ultimately that the message is one of healing or hope or joy or something like that.
Yeah, or positivity. Right. It's tough. I feel like, wasn't there one that you turned down because of that? Yeah,
I've only ever turned down one book because of content, and it was a consent issue, and I really just felt like it was not being used in any way that brought positivity into the world. And maybe someone else was fine with it, and I'm sure they were. It was just, for me, it crossed a line where I was like, I'm not comfortable doing that.
Yeah. So, Christian, have you had that experience where you've been, given a piece of work, and you were like, I don't think I could actually do that one? Do you have a limit or a fine line that says, no, I think I'll pass?
Yeah, I mean, it's a case-by-case basis for me. I mean, I find that most of the material that's out there that gets really racy, especially on a more erotic level, I mean, it's based in, you know, in the tenets of BDSM, and that community, like, is actually very respectful. What a lot of people don't understand about, you know, fetish in that community, and these are things you learn as an audiobook narrator.
Yeah, tell us that up front. You did your research. No, just
yeah. I mean, you gotta know what you're talking about, quote unquote. I mean, you have to know. I mean, you know, that community is. I mean, everything that is done is based in trust and consent.
Yeah. And
you know, the inner workings of it. Once you actually delve into it, you realize that it's very complex. And if there, you know, if consent and the power shift isn't, you know, respectful on some level, then, you know, things start to fall apart. And I think that, so I don't have a limit per se as to what I'm, you know, willing to read or put out there. It's just if the intent is malicious, or if the intent is, as you know, as Lucy said, not, I guess, adding to the positive strain of society. I think that BDSM is actually, you know, a very positive thing. If you know, all the participants understand, you know, limits and the respective wills that are at play. But if it's done in sort of a swashbuckling, you know, disrespectful way, then yeah, I mean, then you're bordering, you start getting into a realm of abuse, and that's not something that I think should be condoned or displayed as acceptable. So if anything like that comes across my palate, you know, in reading or narrating, or honestly, any kind of artistic expression in general, I mean, I politely decline.
That makes sense, but that's okay. There's a lot of other things that you guys accept that will hold our attention, so we're totally fine with that. And just, you know, keep accepting all those other things, and we'll be listening. Cindy Marie has a question for you guys. She wants to know: do you both read the books before you start narrating, and do either of you have a way to prep before you start?
Yeah, I like to do 30 push-ups, 20 sit-ups. You know, some vocal trills, and
oil
then,
yourself
yeah,
up.
and oil
up your pecs.
Yeah, light some candles.
Yeah.
You know, run around the block. You're very sweaty, you know, and then
in a bubble bath for a while.
Yeah, and then I'm ready.
That sounded really nice. No, minus the push-ups. We can skip. I mean, for me, but I mean, again, I'm being that aunt, so I'm watching how you guys, you know, go about this. So, but seriously. What are you doing?
I put on really nice lingerie, and
very funny.
Sometimes I do. Don't judge.
I don't know.
Don't judge. I do read the book every time. So I read the book ahead of time so that I know what's coming my way. And in particular, I'm usually looking for what's my cast of characters? What are their defining traits? Like, does anyone have an accent? Sort of where do they fit into the world of the book, so that you have an idea when you start of a general palette of the voices that are going to be coming, and sort of the energy that's going to be coming in the arc of the story.
Yeah, I do. I definitely do like a full book, you know, speed skim at the very least. If I, you know, we're very busy narrators, and so like sometimes, obviously, it's hard to read every book word for word as if you were curling up with a good novel on the weekend. Mm-hmm. But I definitely give it a thorough paging through. Mostly for me, it's mostly about tone, because a lot of the characters reveal themselves on the fly for me. And I think it's more just about like, what is the tone of this novel? Is it a fun, you know, sexy rom-com, or is there, like the Sugar Bowl series, for example, is there a darker undertone that, you know, we need to be prepared for as artists?
Yeah. So back to your routine, Lucy, you were joking about the lingerie, right? I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm absolutely joking. I'm totally joking about the lingerie.
Because I've chat with enough narrators to find out that most of you guys in those booths kind of basically go in there naked. So if you got on lingerie,
never would go in my booth naked. I would always have a pair of really nice heels on.
I'm probably laughing harder than I should be, but by the way, Lucy has nice legs in heels. I just thought I would throw, if I'm gonna tell you guys she's my girl crush, trust me, I was looking, and she's got great legs, and she's awesome. So there you go, Lucy.
Yeah. Thanks. This is what I wear when I record.
All right, I think, okay, speaking of sex,
yes.
Possible Misty wants to know, are the sex scenes hard to narrate because you get down and dirty? And if there are things you haven't done, you still have to portray it like you do, like you've done it. So how difficult is it, one, narrating those sex scenes, and then perhaps really getting involved or into character for those scenes that are kind of like way off scope? And this may be asking too much, because we really don't want to know what you do when you do what you do. So
you don't want to probably know all of the details.
Yeah, I don't want all of them, just a little.
I actually find that for sex scenes, if I can keep the emotional journey intact, the sex sort of takes care of itself, if that makes sense. Because the sex, while it's amazing, is really only effective if the characters are connecting emotionally in the way that scene needs to take them and move them forward. And I feel like, for me, generally speaking, all the sexy stuff is really about like the connection, the intimacy, and the emotional growth. Mm-hmm. That being said, if there is like a BDSM scene where I'm like, they're doing something and I'm not actually sure what that is, guilty of Googling. I'm sure if there's someone at Google who's like, what is she doing? You know, like, it's cool, man. It's cool. I've learned some interesting, fun things from audiobooks, some of which may or may not have been tried out just because it sounded great. But I think that's why we all, you know, are into these kind of things. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. That's funny. I don't know if that's, I don't know if there's a fundamental shift of male and female energy here. The sex scenes just kind of take care of themselves. I don't honestly like think about it too much, and those are actually some of the easiest guilty or not guilty chapters to narrate for me. I think that you just kind of, for me, it's not autopilot, because sex should never be autopilot, but there's
we hope not.
Yeah, no. But I think what I mean is that once you're, and this might be true in life as well as narrating, I think once you're in that situation, human nature just kind of takes over, and you know how to do that. So I think that's my expression or my experience in narrating as well. I think those chapters just kind of take care of themselves. I just sit back and let it happen. So.
Well, yeah, you sit back and let it happen. And I'll just say, you know, speaking of those scenes, for me, listening to them, not so much of you guys describing what's going on, it's the sound effects that goes with it. And so my just piggybacking off of that question, because some writers do add those, I'm going to call it hyperbole. So they add these sounds that are supposed to go with those scenes. So how fun is that you've got this moan, you know, you're in the booth, and I know you're acting and all that good stuff. But you ever come across something and you kind of go there, and do you laugh afterwards? Because sometimes I'm thinking, I bet they're laughing.
Sometimes you have to laugh. I mean, sometimes there's just something that like will strike you as funny.
That's true.
I was doing a book recently where, and this is really, it was a lovely book. It just struck me as funny. But like the guy is going down on the girl, and in the middle of it, he like looks up at her and he's like, "I can show you the world, baby." And I started singing Aladdin in my head. It was like, this guy's going down on this girl, and it's like, I'm in my booth cracking up singing Aladdin, because it hit a
whole new world.
It hit a funny bone. I had to take 10 minutes. I had to come back to it, and every once in a while something just strikes you as funny.
I'm sure in the moment that was the most titillating thing that could have possibly been said, but I concur. That is a funny moment.
See, this is when you guys should have like bloopers in the booth where you read that part and then you should just break out in a song and start singing A Whole New World. I think that would be awesome.
I think that'd be really great for the listeners. That wouldn't throw them out of the story at all.
No, you just send it to us and we just call these in the booth or outside of the booth or whatever, and there's just these bloopers and then A Whole New World just plays in the background right after you read that part. So now I have A Whole New World in my head. So thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. And now if you ever hear an audiobook again where someone has the line, I can show you the world, it's gonna happen for you.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna stop, you're gonna laugh for a while.
I am. And I'm probably going to send you a message or I'm going to tweet about it and say, hey, guess what I just read? And guess what song just popped in my head? So thank you very much.
You are so welcome.
All right. So let's see. Misty has another question. Some narrators are open about their identity and others keep it a secret. I guess this would be toward Christian, because gosh, you're not on Facebook, you're not on Twitter, we can't find you on Instagram. She wants to know, why do people choose to keep their identities a secret?
That is a question that I think we could dissect from a number of different angles for a very long period of time.
Yes, you could.
Thank you for noticing that. Yeah, there's not a lot on there. I think as an international man of mystery, I kind of enjoy being, in the shadows. I think that it's a tricky professional question, because in the audiobook community in particular, romance was a genre that it's gained a lot of steam over the past few years, and I think it's been recognized more and more so by the audiobook community, but when it came into play for no reason that made any sort of sense or logic, I think it was kind of pushed to the side a little bit for more classic literature, or in favor of more classic literature getting the forefront. And so I think that's kind of where the alias stuff happened. But I also think that nowadays narrators are saying, no, I do this. I'm very proud of this. And it's a cool art form. I actually think that it's more of an issue for the listener. I think if the listener knew who we all were and or what our lives were like on a daily basis, I don't know if that would help if you knew
what Christian Fox actually looks like, or Sarah looks like.
Because
the fantasy's kind of the fun.
My work is to bring you a bunch of different characters, and particularly male characters, to life in such a way that you connect with them in a very erotic and personal way. And I think that if you started to put a face to my identity, I think that might limit your imagination, and that wouldn't be fun for anyone.
Somebody else said the same thing to me. A reason why they aren't as open with their identity as well is the same thing you said, Christian, is that the idea is that your voice is supposed to already give us that fantasy of what this character looks like. Now you're just giving it a voice. And so if we knew everything, what your hair color was, you'd be every character, and that could really spoil not spoil in a bad way. Hey, don't take it wrong.
No.
But I understand that whole mystery thing, like you said, Lucy. Sometimes we just need to have that. But again, us listeners and readers, basically, we're just nosy. I think we're just nosy people, and I'll say me. I could be nosy, but I respect people's privacy, and it would be the same. If a celebrity doesn't want somebody to know it's them, we respect those things, and we just enjoy what they do. So we enjoy what you do, and we'll keep the mystery alive. That's what we'll do.
Thanks. I mean, I think it helps everyone, and adds to the titillation of who is this guy or girl that you have this intimate listening relationship with.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's true. I mean, I there's a lot there's a lot of people that I have to become in order for you, the listener, to really connect and enjoy. And I think that I think as soon as you start putting a realness to that, then that could backfire, and that's no fun for anyone.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we're going to ask another question here, and then for those of you guys who have not heard Preservation, we do have some samples that we would like to share with you, so we want to get around to that. Here's a question from my assistant. I have an assistant. Her name is Rebecca, and she wants to know... Yeah, tell her hi, everybody.
Hi, Rebecca.
Oh, Rebecca, look, you better save this audio interview so you know you got a shout out from Lucy and Christian. Oh. Okay, Rebecca wants to know, what pointers would you give someone who wants to get into narrating or into this part of the industry?
Well,
I'm going to ask to clarify, as in how to break into it and start doing it, or pointers as to performance and or the actual...
would say someone who wants to get into narrating or become a narrator.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think there's some good classes out there,
yep.
Which can be really valuable just because they can tell you about how the business works as well as get you in front of a mic. And then the other thing is you just have to see if you can do it. The best thing to do is get yourself a mic, grab a book, sit down and record yourself for a long time reading a book, and then go back and listen to yourself and do it again and do it again.
I would actually take that one step further. If you're thinking about trying to get into narrating, and someone told me this, and it was actually a great test. Go to a friend's house, who has a literary collection of some sort, go to their bookshelf, close your eyes, and just feel until you find a book on the shelf that that seems thick. Pick it, open your eyes, see what it is. That means you don't get to choose what it is. Take that book, go into a dark, dark, dark closet with very little light and air, bring a lamp, and read it out loud in that dark closet with your flashlight or your lamp. And do that for, I'm going to say 4 hours is a good starting point. 4 hours straight. And every time that you mess up a word or mispronounce a name or come across a word you don't know, stop, look it up, and then when you figure out what it is, restart the sentence. Do that for 4 hours straight. You can take 5 minutes. You can take 5 minute breaks, and if you can do that, then I think you can be an audiobook narrator.
Then go take a class.
Yeah, then go take a class.
Yeah, you had. I nixed that whole idea right when you said go into a dark closet and with a lamp.
Look, most of the recording facilities that we work in are much more comfortable than that. But generally speaking,
it is kind of a small closet.
It is, yeah. Generally speaking, like a lot of narrators start at home by themselves and they don't have a lot of support. And so, I remember my first booth. There was no window, there was no ventilation system. It was incredibly hot, and that was essentially the equivalent, And so I think when you're starting out, it sounds like this amazing mecca of artistic expression and cash flow. But honestly, it's a really tricky job. And I think it takes a lot of stamina. And having a natural knack is good. And yeah, you can take classes. But I think generally speaking, most people underestimate the sheer volume of concentration and resilience that the work takes.
Yeah. Because we just get the end result. We don't really always understand, or personally, we might not care. We just want you to. We just want you to finish the book and put it out there so we can listen to it. But dark closet with the flashlight and it's hot. No, you should have saw me. I was sitting here shaking my head like you can see me, and I'm like, no, that's
nothing for you to concern yourself with. I think, that's our problem for what we've done to do with this life. But I also think that, it can be a challenging career, but I think it's something that you as the listener don't really need to concern yourself with.
Yeah, we don't. We're like, oh, I'm so sorry. They're in the sweatbox today, but can you finish that a little bit faster? Because we've been waiting.
Yeah.
And you guys are like, well, we're done. It's now off to, Audible or whatever. And we're like, well, shoot, can you just hurry it up? And we'll send you towels with ice or something to keep you cool while you're in there. But okay, so what I want to do before we get to some of these other questions, because this show it's technically an hour and some change, but I don't want to keep you guys forever. We're gonna listen to a sample, actually 2 samples of Preservation. So if you guys have not started the Washes series, you definitely want to, but I don't think that there's no spoilers in either one of these, and so we're gonna play it. Should I play yours first, Lucy? I listened to them both and tried to see which order they. Wait, I think it was Christian's first and then yours. If we go in order of how it goes in the book,
I think that's correct. It's just after they've met.
I couldn't see much from my head down perch at the kitchen island, but I heard the thwack of sandals as they slapped against the hardwood floors. Oh, for Christ's sake! This is how malpractice suits start, Acevedo. Stompy Sandals said. My off-kilter view landed on her red flip-flops first. Her legs came next. What a pair they were. So this is Gastro Girl. She was all strength and sinew, and thick thighs that looked prime for biting. I loved thick thighs. I didn't know what it was, men or women, found attractive about skinny bird legs. I liked something to hold on to. Skin to squeeze. Trust me, Alex, I know it, Nick murmured. But this guy's family, and my wife would pummel him with rocks if he tried. True story, I replied, angling for an above-the-waist look at Nick's guest. Her red shorts were loose enough to allow a hand under them, and now I was thinking about panties. Panties. Fucking loved panties. Greetings, Riley Walsh. I extended my hand in her general direction, though given my angle it looked like I was trying to grab her crotch. She took a gigantic step back, and I didn't blame her. My bad. She plunked a bottle of wine down on the countertop and moved from my line of sight. What the hell kind of technique is this, Dr. Acevedo? She asked, ignoring me entirely. It looks like you're maximizing epidermal puncture points. Is scarring the objective of your suturing? Add to Gastro Girl's defining characteristics, the ability to morph into a fire-breathing lady dragon.
No one had any business with an ass like that. Or abs. Or arms. Or face. It was obnoxious, really, the whole perfectly built picture. No one needed that much. And yet, I was still studying his exposed backside as if there was an anatomy quiz in my future. But no, there wouldn't be anything anatomical going on with this guy. No, not at all. He was all gangly, all long limbs and broad tanned shoulders and hands like bear paws. Dark hair, thick and wavy. Bright, expressive eyes that weren't simply blue, but sapphire. He was a young one, too. He was still growing into that body. And what a body it was. But he had a Batman tramp stamp, for fuck's sake. There was no quicker way of announcing one's man-child status than that. I'd put money on him being a player. Oh, but he'd play hard. He'd play to win. I couldn't explain how I knew that, but I knew. He was the kind of guy, with his lower back tattoo and forceful statement about cellars and objectively awful laceration, who'd throw down in a seedy bar because someone looked at a woman the wrong way. But he'd have to be trained. He probably ate pussy like a dog drank water, all unmeasured tongue flapping and a soggy mess.
Of course, I'm laughing at the fact that she said that he had a Batman tramp stamp, which is hilarious. I love this book. I love this book so hard. Did you actually, I just want to know, did you laugh at any parts of this? Especially when Rizdi says why his pants are always unzipped. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. No, laugh out loud. This is a book that is laugh out loud as you're reading it. It's hysterical.
But we already found out that So anyway, yeah, we'll go back to that. So everybody, Preservation released on the 18th. It is by Kate Canterbury. So be sure that you start the Wash series. This is the latest book. I don't know if there's another book. I should probably.
I have not heard either. I don't know.
I mean, because it's like, okay, I can't do a spoiler, but anyway, it's a good book, and I really love that Rizdi Riley, because they called him more Riley than Rizdi in this one, matured a little bit, and we got that background information about him, and that he isn't as much of a flake as everybody said he was. But so anyway, I have a couple additional questions, and then we'll be done, and we will ask if you guys have any questions you want to ask the listeners, and also we want to know what's next. But I have a question from Cindy, and Cindy wants to know, I think she addressed this one to Christian. Christian, are you around on Facebook to see all the things people are saying about you under another name, or are you actually out of the loop completely? And so we've already kind of went through him and his identity and his person, keeping those things kind of private. So you can elect not to answer that question, or you can just, do you ever see things or comments that go out about you? Because I hashtag Mr. Fox all the time.
I do keep an eye out. I am watching. I can't say much more than that.
Okay, good.
Also, Lucy does keep me abreast when I missed something very stimulating. So she lets me know. Okay. But yeah, I'm around. Let's just say that.
Yeah, he's around. So that's your extent of the answer, and he's Big Brother. He's watching. So keep those hashtags coming. I think it's Mr. Fox, and there's another one with the Mr. Fox on it, and somebody just gave you a hashtag Smexy Voice, and so yeah, there you go. Okay, so on to some fun things. So I heard, in case you guys, I don't know if you share this, but Lucy rides a Harley, which I think is so amazing. And you did like these little, I don't know what you were doing. You were on the Harley and you were like jumping over stuff like you were freaking Evel Knievel and stuff. So I want to know, when did you like get this whole kind of motorcycle rebel thing going on? Because I follow those pictures and I think they're freaking amazing.
I mean, I do ride a Harley. I don't even have a car. I spend all my time on my Harley. I love my girl. I've been riding for about 6 years now, I guess. And I think what you're referring to is the 4th of July bash, yes, where I went out with all my motorcycle boys on the 4th of July, and there was jumping off of ramps lit on fire on motorcycles. That is all correct. Probably not the smartest or safest thing I could have been doing, but it was damn fun.
It looked great, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's such a freaking rebel. I love her. And I was like, I want to ride a Harley. I mean, I took a class to learn how to ride a bike, and it didn't really, they passed me, but I wouldn't trust me with riding a bike. It just wouldn't be good for anybody, including the people on the street. So,
if we have any authors listening today, I've done a couple of motorcycle romance series, which I love doing, but I wish the women rode more.
Oh, yeah, see.
On the back of the bikes, and I want the women on the front of the bikes.
Yeah, that's a good request you put out there. I probably should. Well, they have them in porn. So I don't know. I'm just saying.
Well,
good to know. Good to know. That's good to know.
Yeah, I did do a Cat Porter series where Grace she rode, so she actually rode too, which was nice. That's I was good. Like that was great. She gets to tear off on her Harley a couple times.
That's good.
It was good.
that works for me.
But so Christian, what about you? Do you have some kind of rebel-like tendencies that you can share with us?
Yes.
Long pause.
Rebel-like ride-like tendencies. Well, fun fact, I also ride. I'm a big motorcycle enthusiast.
He may or may not have some tattoos. I'll out him on that one.
I do have tattoos.
Oh, yay. That's nice.
What are my other rebel qualities?
I mean, you know, he sometimes plays in rock bands. I'm not going to out him too much, but he's got some rebel cred.
I do.
He's got some rebel cred.
Mm-hmm.
His hair at any given time is definitely not the norm. It's usually on the extreme end of hair choices in a good way.
You're giving him too much. We're done.
Well, she
Look,
did.
I mean, don't want me to tell him your hair is pink and curly. I won't.
That would be great because I could imagine. Oh, for those of you guys who didn't know, Christian Fox agreed to join the Aurally Screwed collection, so that will be coming out soon. But I could just see it now. I with me adding that and then thinking, oh my God, he's got pink curly hair and he's got tattoos and piercings and he plays in a rock band. And then the next thing you know, I'm picturing you as an avatar on Guitar Hero or something. And so yeah, that's what we're going with. You are now.
Who said anything about piercings? I feel like that was not.
It wasn't. I just made it up.
I see. Maybe this is a personal request that you should look at. I don't know if that was established.
Oh well, see, I heard rock band, and then I heard motorcycle and tattoos, and so then all of that in my fantasy and my great imagination added a couple tattoos like a brow piercing, and so I'm just that's my version of Christian Fox. Thank you very much.
Let's talk more about you.
Okay, yeah. So let's not talk about
these
me.
are the things you're looking for. Good to know.
These are her fantasies in a man, clearly.
Yeah, that's that. I think I mentioned. Did we have this discussion, Lucy, when I met you? Like I'm all about that rugged guy with the tattoos everywhere and the piercings and the bike and the boots, and that's all me. Or has a big truck and
big truck.
Big truck.
We're talking about motor vehicles, correct?
We're talking about big trucks, and anybody who's listening
big trucks.
Big
old trucks
with big beds in the back, you know.
Yeah, big beds, big shaft drives, big what?
All right, I'll leave the two of you alone. Have a great day.
Oh my gosh, this was so much fun. Thank you both for being on the show with me today. I mean, it's been fabulous, and there are people in the chat, and there's a new hashtag now. Thank you, Lucy. Rebel Cred. So we're going. Rebel Cred is the new hashtag, and and everybody's like, big trucks is code for what? You know what big trucks are?
No, what that's code for? Come on, y'all.
Yeah, don't ask questions you know the answers to.
Big trucks.
Big, really big monster trucks. I'm just saying.
Oh, big monster trucks.
Oh Lord.
Oh my God, I'm crying. Okay, so what's okay? Before we get to what's new with both of you together, Lucy, what's new? What's on your dashboard? What are you working on that's releasing soon?
Yeah, I've got a new book coming out soon with Blunder Woman Productions producing. That is a BDSM book. I'm going to have to look at the title. It's something Hollywood. But what I love about it is in this particular book, the woman is definitely the dom, which is an unusual twist in a lot of these books.
Nice.
So that's going to be really fun.
That's great.
Really excited about that coming out. It's going to give a slightly different flavor. And then we've got one that we're doing a duel of right now. It's a new Shayla Black
Indeed.
book called Misadventures of the Backup Bride.
A Backup Bride, I believe. Misadventures of a Backup Bride.
The Backup Bride, new Shayla Black piece.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trying to think if I have any other Lucy's lined up right now.
Just trying to remember what they are.
He's got an exciting one coming.
Yeah,
Yes.
I've worked for a while now with CD and CD Rice, and I've got a title coming out, a new one for her
Yes.
called King of Code, and I hear that pretty excited about it.
We are excited.
Cool. I am too. I'm not gonna lie. I put a bit of my all into that, and I think it's going to be a very unique and interesting take on a romance novel. I mean, CD's always pretty innovative with her work, but this one in particular revolves around two characters that are very much in the tech and hacking world, and those things are very prominent in the book. And we've approached them in a very interesting way, I think. I've done a lot of things besides narrating, actually, on this book that involve audio. So I think people are going to enjoy it, and they're going to be pretty surprised.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very surprising and interesting audiobook from what I've heard. So.
Especially for the romance genre. So
yes, and she I think she posted on SoundCloud a sample, or it was, I don't think it was like chapter 1, but she put a nice sample out there and even told us that it may come out before the ebook. So that got all of our all of the audio, I'm just gonna call it, we're called audiobook whores. It got all of our attention.
That's great.
I mean, we have the whores and we have the sluts, and so some people find themselves in the middle, and we don't care. We just, we do it. Anything for an audiobook. We'll dance for audiobook. That's kind of what we going with. But I'm excited about King of Code. CD put so much research in her fan group, and so much research into finding out about hacking and codes, and she, I think, pushed the date back a couple times and said it has to be perfect because that's just kind of how she is. She's a perfectionist. And and then she gave all of us, she allowed us to have the photo of the book cover, and the guy that she's working with kind of coded our name. And so once the book is released, I'm going to put mine out there. But I thought that was so neat as far as marketing goes, and everybody's blowing up chat saying they can't wait for King of Code. So we're excited about that. And then I know that you did Bombshell as well.
Yep.
So yeah, and do you know in advance, I don't know if you can tell us, but I know that Bodyguard is coming out soon. So any hopes that you'll be doing Bodyguard too?
I am not at liberty to say, and sometimes do not know.
We'll leave it like that, and then we'll just go to her and request that
do that.
We'll request that. And so together you guys are doing, did you say, Lucy, that both of you guys together were doing the Misadventures book that's
a backup ride, for Shayla Black. So that's a duel with the two of us. Okay.
And so, will that complete your year for you guys, or do you have some other things that could be in the works maybe before Christmas?
No, I think there'll be some other stuff coming out before Christmas. I just remembered I got a new Penny Reed book coming out, which I'm super excited about. I don't know if you guys if you follow Penny Reed a lot, but she's hysterical and very, very funny. I love her writing, called Beard in Mind.
Yes.
And then I'm joining Alexander Sendi's in the Wright brothers. I think they're on book 6 or 7 or something, but we have the next one that's coming out, he and I together. So The Right Mistake. It's it's a big series, and they have a bunch of different narrators who come in to do each book. So that'll be really fun.
Well, that sounds amazing, and we will be sure that we are keeping a lookout for all of the works that are coming out soon. And again, everybody, if you are not following Lucy Rivers on Facebook, go by and like her page. I would say she does a lot of tweeting on the Twitter, so you can also follow her on Twitter, but Facebook is important too. I'm an advocate of that. And if you are interested, you can get your Aurally Screwed by Lucy Rivers mug or t-shirt at Cafe Press. I don't even know all that information, but if you go to my Facebook page, you'll see it. And Christian, I will send something to Lucy from me to you, and you can just pick it up directly from her. How's that?
That sounds great. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. And so, do you, Lucy, are you going to any events Next year, I know that narrators are getting out there a little bit more and trying to do more marketing at book events and things like that. Anything scheduled or lined up for you next year?
Yeah, I'm actually planning on being at RT in Reno. I'm going to be running a panel, an audiobook panel there. So I'll be at RT in Reno next year, and I'll also be headed to RWA in Denver. It's going to be a very busy May for me, May, June. So I'll be doing both of those. And then I think there's another smaller, there's a smaller, it's an independent author con that's in Burbank actually in October. So I'll be doing a panel there. We'll be doing one with C.D. Reese and one with Rachel Van Dyken, which is great. Super excited about both of those. So I'll be doing 2 panels. And I think that's October 3rd through the 5th up in Burbank. So if anyone's an indie author in the LA area, it's really easy to get to. And I think you can still get your passes. So getting out there, I'm going to be at a bunch of different things this coming year.
So I didn't hear you say you were going to the APAC. Does that mean you're not going to be there and I'm going to have to stalk you somewhere else?
I'm sure I'll be at APAC. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Because I was going to be a little upset that you weren't coming.
Oh, no, I'll be there. I mean, we got to get pizza at 3 a.m. again.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you for that experience. I had my first Chicago pizza at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's just weird that nothing was closed. But it's New York, right?
Yep.
All right. So, Christian, that means that we won't see you at any events, right? Technically, we won't see you.
You might, but you don't know what I'm like. So we might come across one another, and you'll just have to figure it out.
You'll just have to listen really hard.
Yeah, I never said I wouldn't be there, but good luck.
That's kind of rude. I'll just go around to everybody and say, I'll pick a book and I'll say this, and then I'll just put my ear up real close. And I'll say,
I would love for you to do that. I would enjoy. I'm going to enjoy watching you at these events. All creepy.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. So you just be sitting back laughing like she's trying to figure it out. She'll never figure it
out. We'll see.
I'll be your comic relief. So there you go.
Great.
All right. So before we go, we've got some people that want to say hi. Allison Kay says, "Hey, Lucy." And Jessica Wakefield says she can't wait for Right Mistake. Allison said she also had a chance to meet you this year in Hollywood in June. She met you.
I was there for a small signing in June. Then I got to meet Allie. Hi, Allie.
So she said hi, and there you go. So everybody, thank you so much for listening. I want to thank Lucy and Christian so much for being with us today. It's been spectacular. I know I said that already, and you guys are welcome to come back on the show anytime.
Cool.
Well, thanks for having us, Jock. We love you.
Thank you.
I love you guys too. And everybody, be sure you're following us on Facebook at The Audio Flow, and also on I don't even know where I am, on Twitter at The Audio Flow. So it's _Audio Flow. And this episode will be downloadable on iTunes and Google Play, and will also stream on iHeartRadio and TuneIn. But until next time, everybody, remember, listening to audiobooks never sounded so good. Have a great day.
Bye.
Okay.